We have checked the tape, and now it is time to talk about what we saw in the Dolphins' All-22 performance, the coach's film. We got it. We watched it. Talking the offensive side of the ball with the win against the Texans here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Network. Today is a Monday, August 21st, 2023. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find our shows on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I want to tip my cap to the everydayers, and thank you guys for making Locked On Dolphins your first Miami Dolphins listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. We got the coach's film. We watched the coach's film, at least offensively. I still have to do the defense. But worked through the full All-22 gambit of all of the Dolphins performers on the offensive side of the ball. And as was the case last week, I have my Dolphins roster handy so that we can read through the notes and observations that I have of the players. And I want to start segment one, talk about the starters, right? You've obviously got a first quarter that featured a lengthy offensive drive, a short-lived offensive drive. And then you had the red zone appearance from the starting defense before there were already some rotational things that had started to be made. So I look at what the Dolphins did offensively on the sustained drive for the touchdown. And the biggest observation that I have is this. From a running game perspective, there were times last year where you felt like the Dolphins were a block away, a key block away from springing a big run. But even then, things felt a little disjointed at times. And I'll make the analogy as this. When I go to a college football game, say, and I'm not familiar with any of the prospects, and I just say, I'm going to come into this game with a blank slate, and I'm going to let the game speak to me on what players I need to watch. I try to watch from a 30,000-foot view and watch not just the player, but I try to watch all 11 on each side of the ball. And when you get to a certain point, you can really see how everything kind of moves together. It's one big organic action that you're trying to accomplish. And the Dolphins really didn't have a lot of that last year. They had it against Houston, where you are seeing the entire front creating wash, and then you're pulling players around to win at the point of attack. And the back is making a proper read and key out of it. With Raheem Mostert, obviously, he's familiar with the system. That's not a big surprise. That was the biggest difference to me, was seeing the starters out there in the run game and everything flowing organically, everything flowing together. The push that you're creating is all happening at the same time. The step frequency of the offensive line is more in rhythm. The receivers are getting down and digging out blocks in the box and timed up better instead of, oh, I got really good horizontal wash, but my receiver's not down in here, so that safety can shoot in and fit on that gap. And now the ball carrier's got to make a big play happen, and you wish the offensive line maybe would have reacted quicker so he had a different avenue. Nope. The runs fit together. The blocks fit together. It was the number one thing that stood out to me. The other thing that I really enjoyed, and you kind of got a sense of this chess match that the Dolphins were playing with the Texans throughout the course of this drive, the third down conversions that they had on that drive saw a decent amount of cover six. Split field coverages, quarter, half. You take one opportunity, you put Tyreek Hill on the backside, and it's quarter, half, and what you do is you run Durham Smythe. It was a 3-by-1 formation. It's the first third down backed up inside your own 20. Quarter, half. The They play the half to Tyreek Hill, who's isolated on the backside. So you get a clouded up corner who's going to press him, and then a safety that's going to play deep half over top. Okay, it's a Vic Fangio staple. The other side of the field, the linebacker to that side is the wall player. His objective is to turn any routes that come across the middle of the field. I got to collision him and can't let him clean across my face. Got to turn him back. Durham Smythe pushes hard upfield as the third strong receiver eligible, and you got a horizontal lift by the 2 receiver to the 3 receiver side to kind of try and run and create space. So Durham Smythe runs up. He gets onto that wall player, that linebacker, that's that end player. It's the hard line in the sand on the half field coverage. And I gotta turn him back. And Durham leans into him, and then he hinges and he breaks outside into the space that was created by the horizontal run from the 2. And Tua, in rhythm, feels this. It's, as JT O'Sullivan would say, capital A, anticipation. When Tua makes the decision to throw the ball, Durham is just leaning into the linebacker. And then he hinges and pivots out, and the ball is on his outside shoulder away from that defender. It was a really nice job of reading the player at the sticks to convert the first down against the coverage that you got. And it attacked that coverage correctly. So you got quarter, half. So then the Dolphins say, okay, well, our next third down, we're going to take Tyreek Hill, and we're going to take him from the backside. And now we're going to move him over to 2. So he's in the 3 receiver side. You still go 3 by 1. And you run an option route with him. Houston runs cover 1. They run, it was a 5-man pressure, middle of the field closed, which means there's a high free safety and a high post. You're manned across the board. Tyreek Hill's got Desmond King. And it's at like bump coverage, about 5 yards of depth. So Tyreek Hill closes that space, forces Desmond King to flip his hips. Desmond King carries vertically, and Tyreek Hill snaps it off because it's man coverage, and he breaks outside. And obviously the outside corner has run with the outside receiver. And then you get down into the red zone, and you have another opportunity where they run quarter, half again. It was to his, it was 2nd and 9. It was to his best throw. It was the throw that he layered over top of Desmond King, where they caught quarter, or they caught cover 6 again, excuse me. And this time, Tyreek is running a deep out. And to the 3 receiver side, you've got a deep out. And now it's Braxton Berrios at the 3. And Braxton Berrios presses inside. He presses on and fakes that wall player and gets up over top of him, and then leans inside like he's going to run across before bending and turning the route outside. And Tua drops it up over top of Desmond King, who is in the flat hook curl coverage against Durham Smythe, who was running the underneath dummy route. So you're trying to high-low that player. When you high-low that player, Tyreek Hill's going to catch the attention of the deep coverage because he's Tyreek Hill. Braxton Berrios sells like he's working across before folding back out. And Durham, running a shallow, just sucks that player up just enough where I can now, in rhythm, back foot hits the ground. If I'm Tua Tagovailoa, back foot hits the ground. I hitch once to allow Braxton Berrios to sell that he's coming across the middle. And then again, with big time anticipation, as Braxton's bending out to get out of the break, I'm going to layer the ball up over top of the outstretched fingers of Desmond King and drop that thing into Braxton Berrios, where if he keeps his feet, he scores a touchdown. So you got 2 cover 6 beaters, and then you got a option route from Tyreek Hill against cover 1 man. That all in high leverage situations, 1 in the red zone, 2 on third down, were really, really good execution. So there's your passing game observations, and there is your running game observations. I want to tip the cap to Kendall Lamb. I thought he played a nice football game for the opportunities that he had. I think Austin Jackson out there is somebody that we could probably talk a little bit more about in depth. I don't want to rush the Austin Jackson conversation. So that's actually what we're going to come back to next on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. Whether you're dealing with decisions around your career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected with what you really want to navigate in life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement that you are making the best decisions for you and yourself. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. So if you're thinking of trying online therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional cost. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. So let's talk Austin Jackson a little bit. I wouldn't classify him as a winner, but I also wouldn't classify him as a loser as far as performances go against Houston. I thought it was a little bit of a mixed bag. You saw the run on the 2-yard line on 2nd and 15 to start that long touchdown drive was probably his best play, where he works backside cutoff against a 3 technique. Robert Hunt gets up on top of a linebacker and creates the second level space. And Austin, really athletic, cutting off Sheldon Rankins. Really, really nice job to work all the way across. So when we talk about the athleticism of Austin Jackson and how he can fit within the structure of this offense and how his assets, his best assets, can be accentuated, those are the kinds of plays that you have in mind. So if you get a chance, go back and watch that run from Raheem Mostert to get you out of the shadow of your own goalposts, to set up the 3rd and 9 conversion or 3rd and 8 conversion at Durham Smythe. And watch Austin Jackson on the backside of that run, really explosive lateral step, rip across the face of Sheldon Rankins, and I'm going to set the hook. And once he got him in place, he kept him in place. I think physically he struggled with speed to power conversions a little bit, whether it was Jerry Hughes or Will Anderson. Those power conversion rushes from really explosive, twitchy guys was where I thought he showcased the greatest area of concern. One of those, and I'm sympathetic to the complex nature of the rep that he had to take. Houston gets up on the line of scrimmage. They got 2 3s and 2 9s, right? So 2-3 techniques and 2 9s. And then they have linebackers mugged up in the A-gaps. So you got 6 guys on the line of scrimmage. The Dolphins ran a play that I've been begging us to run for feels like 18 months now. Mesh. They appeared like they ran mesh. Because they hit Saman Ahmed on the rail route out of the backfield quick. And that was another 3rd down conversion that he converted and was able to Tua Tagovailoa processed it quickly, but also understood, hey, am I going to be hot? Yes or no? He was not hot, but he still made the decision based on the leverage of the coverage to get the ball to his first read, which is the rail route out of the backfield. So with the linebackers mugged up in the A-gaps, you as the offensive line, you understand there's 6 here. If they all come, we can't block somebody. So Connor Williams is committed to, they've made a commitment to step left. And Connor Williams is going to take the A-gap defender to his left. And obviously Isaiah Wynn steps left, Kendall Lamb steps left. You can't invoke the running back because the running back in mesh is running the rail route. He's the first progression. So you can't just tag him into the protection and get 6 for 6 and say, hey, we're not hot. We're not going to block it up, or we're able to block it up. Robert Hunt has to squeeze at least for a split second in the event that the other A-gap defender shoots the A-gap. Because if Rob Hunt says, well, I got a defensive tackle, a 3 technique on my outside shoulder, I'm just going to take him, and the center steps left, and the other A-gap linebacker that's walked up comes, he's got a free run to the quarterback, and you don't want to be hot up the A-gaps like that. So Robert has to honor the linebacker first before then getting into his protection. Austin's in the same situation that Robert is in. Hey, I got to provide some kind of a kickstand for Robert Hunt as the 3 technique, where if Robert's got to step down, I too got to step down, and I got to take the 3 technique, and then the edge rusher, the guy on the edge, is going to be the rusher because that's the furthest distance to get to the quarterback. But if Robert doesn't have to squeeze and he comes back out and sets on the 3, then I can set on the 9 technique, which is Jerry Hughes. So the linebacker does not come. The weak side linebacker does not come. But both Austin and Robert have to take a split second to confirm it that they're not squeezing down into a full slide before they set on their players. Robert gives a quick hand check, confirms, he sets on the 3. Austin gives a quick check, peeks inside, feels Robert's step to the 3 technique, and he says, okay, now I can get out here on Jerry Hughes. But he's a tick late getting off of it, and Jerry Hughes is bat out of hell, shot out of a cannon, and he ends up bull rushing Austin Jackson. Austin needs to anchor better, period. There's no question about it. But at the very least, I think Austin, I understand the process of how Austin got put in that position, and I appreciate the fact that we checked and we didn't just say, well, I'm just going to set on the outside guy, and then heaven forbid they do come, and now you've given a free runner up the middle. So, mixed bag, Austin Jackson. As far as guys that I think are absolutely winners, I've got a list of them, and I'll go ahead and read through, I think, who the obvious winners are. I think Robert Hunt was a big-time winner amongst the starters for his play. He manhandled a couple of guys. He did a really nice job, and once it became Roy Lopez, Roy Lopez probably going to have a real hard time thinking about Rob Hunt at night because Rob threw him around. I thought Raheem Mostert, obviously the chunk runs. He had the run on 2nd and long inside your own 5. He had the long run that puts you on the fringe of the red zone that set up the touchdown. He had the touchdown run. I thought he looked really, really good. I thought Durham Smythe showcased himself well as a blocker. He and Tyler Kroft set the key blocks on the touchdown run. And if you had to ask me right now, those are your top 2 tight ends. Is Durham Smythe and Tyler Kroft. Tyler Kroft going to be a low-key, sneaky good signing for the Dolphins. I think he's far surpassed every other player that's not Durham Smythe. And the familiarity in the system shows. Kendall Lamb, who we already acknowledged, and then Braxton Berrios. Berrios had the big 2nd and long catch that put you down inside the 5 and set up the touchdown. He had a touchdown catch on a long developing route from Skylar Thompson on another red zone opportunity just before the half, where he did a really nice job. He runs a deep route that's kind of up the middle and then breaks that thing outside and kind of as an extended play, bananas his way back downhill towards a bunch of green grass, and Skylar cuts it loose and he's able to get in the end zone. Braxton was pretty scrappy too. He had a couple plays where he was really getting into guys as a blocker for a not big guy. Where I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it was really healthy work that he was able to find. So I thought Braxton Berrios helped himself as well. For guys that are not starters, but I thought were winners, Skylar Thompson, who we acknowledged on yesterday's show, played probably the best performance we've seen from him since the first half of Minnesota in the regular season last year or last year's preseason. I thought he settled in really well. I thought his understanding of where he needed to go with the ball, I thought that was the biggest issue that I took with Skylar's play last year was you're getting up to the line of scrimmage, and I thought there were too many instances where we were working congested sides of the field relative to leverage and routes and the game situation and the down and distance, and missed some good opportunities to find easier completions. Well, I thought he found some easier completions. I thought the slant route that he threw to Cedric Wilson on an empty formation on a 3rd and short was a really nice example of an easy completion. He also got outside the pocket. He was in the grasp at times and got it down to his running back, and he shoveled one to Julian Hill, who I thought was another player who had some high water moments that I'll acknowledge here as well. Obviously, Savon Ahmed, with the rushing production that he has, it's hard not to classify him as a winner. I think he's firmly solidified himself on the 53. And a guy we didn't see last week, Dan Feeney. He played both center and guard, played center and left guard, or center and right guard, and got some good movement. I think he's better in the run game, or he was better in this game in the run game than he was in pass protection. There were some instances in pass pro where guys hit him with a counter, and he's not quite able to recover to the degree that you would have liked to have seen from a functional athleticism standpoint. But in close quarters and horizontal run flow and creating some movement and creating some displacement, I thought Dan Feeney did a nice job. He'll obviously be critical, as the Dolphins learned via the imaging for Robert Jones that he has a sprained MCL. He's probably going to miss 4 to 6 weeks, according to his agent, Drew Rosenhaus. If it's 4, you might be available to dress for week 2. If it's 6, you're probably available to dress in week 4 against Buffalo, if you're Robert Jones. So bummer for Robert, who is obviously in the running for a starting spot, but you look at Teron Armstead, Isaiah Wynn, Connor Williams, Robert Hunt, Austin Jackson, probably your projected 5. Kendall Lamb is the swing tackle. I think you still have Dan Feeney as your flex interior guy. So now you're at 7. Lester Cotton's been in the running. We haven't acknowledged Liam Eichenberg yet. Like, Feeney having a good performance helps me feel a little bit better about the Robert Jones injury for him being on the shelf for approximately a month. It's a bummer for him, though, because I think Rob's been pretty solid for you. Other guys that I have is mixed bag guys. Tua Tagovailoa, obviously the interception thrown, not something you want to see. I don't think that was designed to be a sprint out upon further review. I think it was penetration from 45, which I believe is Jacob Martin for the Texans, was in a 9 tech. And he slipped underneath the slice action from Durham Smythe. And I think Tua felt that and was forced to get off his spot. And that just compounded the throwing in window issue even more because it pulled all the linebackers to come with you. So in a perfect world, we're not juiced up. We put the ball in the ground. We throw the ball out of bounds. We go to second down, and we go from there. It's not what you got. Now, if you're Tua Tagovailoa, you got hit, made a tackle, threw an interception, you bounce back. Okay, we'll see if they ultimately choose to give Tua more reps before the start of the regular season. But we got our feet in the water. I think that's a nice step. And again, the anticipation and some of the routes that he threw and attacked this cover 6 type of look, these split field coverages for third down conversions, that was a big win for me, was seeing, okay, they got split field coverage and Tua is attacking it and on time and understanding what he's seeing when he's throwing the ball and throwing with anticipation, accuracy, and touch. Okay, that's the good news. And then Julian Hill was my other mixed bag guy. We'll talk about him and then some guys who I think are potentially losing ground next year as we bring this episode of Locked On Dolphins to a close. The NFL season is just about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to win all season long because right now, when you bet on Super Bowl winners, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick on any team to win the Super Bowl, and you will get bonus bets for every victory that you can use on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com/LockedOn. So I got my notes here. The roster. Julian Hill. I think there was some good. I think there was some bad. Had a couple receptions in this game. Had one where he made himself available for a Skylar Thompson shovel. Was good awareness. Had an awesome, just he planted a starting defensive end in the NFL like a tree on this chip release against Jonathan Grenard. And I saw it on the TV copy when we were watching the game live. I said, holy cow, he just stuck him. And sure enough, you went back and watched it, and he buried him. And Jonathan Grenard's a good player. Now, what we should not do is put too much stock into a rep in which the defensive end is not looking at you at all and is focused on rushing the offensive tackle, and he gets caught with his shoulder from the side. I love the physicality. But when I watched Julian Hill in his entirety, I thought that was the best rep. I thought the hands that he showcased as a pass catcher was a desirable attribute. But the inline blocking, I don't think is where you're going to want it to be to feel like he can be a consistent, positive contributor just yet. Now, I think the long-term prospects is this is a developmental player are outstanding. And the Dolphins are going to have this decision to make to say, okay, do we want to run the risk of putting him through waivers when we get to the 53-man cutdown and risk losing him? As a developmental type, he's an awesome developmental player. And he has taken to the physicality of the NFL much better than you would expect on the surface level of watching a player that played at Campbell University. But the consistency of getting attached on blocks with his hands and staying framed on those blocks is an area that he's going to need to continue to develop. You would expect that he needs to continue to develop. And he got a lot of run in this football game. I don't know what that means. I don't necessarily know that that's an indication that he's ahead of Elijah Higgins. I think Elijah Higgins has a much better ceiling as a receiver. Obviously, he was a college receiver. You would expect that to be the case. Elijah Higgins, by the way, on one of those key down and distance situations, it was the last 2 minutes of the third quarter. He drew Shaq Griffin, who's been like a successful NFL corner in coverage, and he blew right by him. He blew the doors off him by 3 yards on just a 9 route down the field. Now, it was a lift route, so you're running the coverage off. But the way that he ran through that, if that safety that was in the high post was sniffing around somewhere he could have been, Skylar could have felt or seen that and turned that ball loose, and it would have been a touchdown because he burned Shaq Griffin that bad. So for Julian Hill, I'm encouraged. I think that there's going to be a strategic decision that's made. But if they keep Julian Hill on the 53, I think that's a player that's going to have to earn his keep on special teams more so than being a player who is consistently contributing as a net positive player on the offensive play. Players who I think lost ground and their status with the roster is kind of hurt. Myles Gaskins won by no fault of his own. He did not participate in this game. And maybe the Devon Achane shoulder injury that is still to be determined on the severity of that will help his cause when it's all said and done. But ultimately, look, Chris Brooks ran hard. Chris Brooks had a good performance. Savon Ahmed had a strong performance. And that's to go with Jeff Wilson and Raheem. Like, the numbers game is not friendly for Myles Gaskin. And to miss time, I think hurts. I definitely think that hurts him. I think another player who did not dress, whose status we're probably past the point of no return on, is Liam Eichenberg. Isaiah Wynn wasn't perfect. I think Isaiah Wynn had a really good push. I think Isaiah Wynn had really good moments. I think some of the nuances and little points of playing guard, as far as working off combo blocks inside to get to linebackers with the angles being different. Some of your set points as a pass protector are a little bit different. I think those are the areas for Isaiah Wynn that adding more polish there is going to be helpful for him. I wouldn't say Isaiah Wynn played a perfect football game by any means, but I think there were, if you took all the net performances, positive and negative, he was a positive performer for the Dolphins. And even though you have Robert Jones, who's got a sprained MCL, and you had Lester Cotton, who did not participate either, you got Dan Feeney as a strong performer. You got Isaiah Wynn, who seems to be pulling away from the pack here. And Liam not getting a chance to get in and work against anybody from Houston. He missed the whole week of practice. I think he's losing ground severely, and I think the door's probably creeping close to shut, if not completely shut, on his hopes of being the starting left guard. Robbie Chosen's another one offensively. Had one opportunity. The ball came in hot and high. It was a catchable ball. You would have liked to see him bring it in, but he did not. And I think with the wide receiver room and the competitiveness of that group, you'd like to think we'd be making some plays. And that hasn't been the case. Obviously, he was a mini camp darling and standout for what he was able to do early in this offseason install. But I'm just a little worried for Robbie that, with River Craycraft getting run and being here with the team last year and being in this offense for several seasons, and what Braxton Berrios has emerged to look like, and Eric Ezukama starting to get schemed touches, in addition to being asked to be a complimentary player, and obviously Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Cedric Wilson's financial commitment. There's just a lot that I think, if you're starting to see who's pulling away from the pack and who's not, I think Robbie Chosen's in the wrong group in the wide receiver room in that regard. And then the same thing I think can be said for Eric Saubert. They tried to give Eric Saubert some run as a fullback in this game, and those instances as a fullback where he's trying to insert and take on defensive linemen, I was surprised to see just how well the defensive linemen were able to absorb his contact. And that was not necessarily what I was expecting. Saubert's kind of been a seam runner in the passing game, but has had some effective looks as a blocker in the past. But I think Tyler Kroft is pulling away from him. And I think these young guys are making a really strong argument to potentially save a little bit of money, not a lot of money, but a little bit of money, and have longer or more appealing long-term upside. So I think Saubert at this point, he's definitely falling behind Tyler Kroft, and Durham Smythe was always in front of him. So now you're looking at tight end 3 at the best. Well, now you got a rookie that you drafted in Higgins, and you got Julian Hill as an intriguing developmental type who can be something that I don't think Saubert is as far as a big-bodied physical inline guy. I don't think Saubert's ever going to be a road grader. So those are the guys for me who I think are maybe falling off the pace a little bit as we get ready to get down here in the next week. I believe cut down is 8 days from now, and you got to go straight from 90 to 53. And it's going to be a bloodbath. It's one of the least enjoyable days of the NFL calendar is to see those roster cut downs and see so many players. Almost half the players that are on a roster right now, 10 days from now, will not be on a team. It's the ugly side of the business. But I don't think all of those players, based on their financial situation, namely Eichenberg and the investment and the importance of offensive line depth, I don't think he's necessarily in danger with a roster spot. But those other 3, Gaskin, Saubert, Chosen, I'd be a little bit concerned about as far as their forecast making the roster moving forward from here. That is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Dolphins. I hope you guys enjoyed this All-22 deep dive into the Dolphins' offensive performance against the Texans. Next, we have the defensive side. I got to go grind that tape, which is what I'm about to go do. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. I appreciate the everydayers for staying locked in with us here on the Locked On Network. Make it a great rest of your afternoon. And I'll be back to talk to you all again soon about more Dolphins football. Fins up.